In the Wabash Valley, it's High 99 for music and more. High 99.
Proud to serve Western Indiana and Eastern Illinois, this is WTHI-TV 10 Terre Haute. And now George Isley, Teresa Tanous, Jeff Lyons with computerized weather, and Matt Fleck with Farm Watch. This is Action 10 News at midday.
Good afternoon, I'm George Isley.
And I'm Teresa Tanous.
Today on Action 10 News at midday, a motorcycle accident on Terre Haute's north side slightly injures a man this morning. Meanwhile, residents of a north side neighborhood think signs may have saved a life in another crash.
And a court appearance for a man accused of shooting his neighbor in Sullivan County. And a new study shows seatbelt laws are working, and we will bring you part 2 of my special series on cholesterol.
All those things and more coming up in just a minute.
But first, we're going to update the Action 10 weather forecast with Jeff Lyons.
And Jeff, this morning you were saying dry. Is there a new word?
No, we're going to continue the too darn dry campaign.
Too darn dry, that was it.
A couple people have called and already mentioned it to me, so I figure people now will have something to talk to me about in the mall. You know, they can say, Jeff, it's too darn dry outside, because it is. We're 6 inches under on our rainfall for this time of year. I'll tell you why and what our chances are for some rain in a few moments.
I like that, the weather slogan.
Yeah, well, you know, because people come up sometimes and they don't know what to tell me or what to say to me, so now they can just say it's too darn dry.
That's a great segment.
You help them out.
We'll be back to you.
That'll bring us our Farm Watch segment.
Yeah, we've got chickens and scarecrows and some good news about farmland values. In our agriculture news, we'll also update you on farm markets.
Okay, well, one of my favorite guests joins us today, Vigo County Health Officer Dr. William Drummey. He will be here to talk about median tunnel syndrome, which is a common disease of the hand. A lot of older people have it, so we'll be discussing that a bit later. But first, George, you've got our midday news.
Never heard of that. That should be interesting. Okay, thank you, Teresa. Well, it was dark, and there were no lights. There were no reflectors. 45-year-old Larry Roberts, an off-duty Indiana State University police patrolman, drove his motorcycle onto an earthen embankment Monday night. The impact threw him into the air. He landed on the Conrail tracks, and his bike landed on top of him. Roberts was killed. Now people in the north side neighborhood tell us signs may have saved his life.
I think they should do something about that. Get some kind of reflectors or something down there so people knows that that's closed, so that this sort of thing don't happen again.
There's nothing down there, and you can't see it. I didn't see it with even though my headlight's going. I didn't notice it, so it's kind of dangerous.
Residents also tell us there have been at least a dozen non-fatal accidents at the 4th Street dead end in the past 5 to 10 years. Well, traffic was backed up on Lafayette Avenue at Haythorne just before 8 o'clock this morning. City police tell Action 10 News 23-year-old Albert Conway was southbound on his motorcycle following a car when he thought the car was going to turn right at Haythorne. Instead, the car turned left and hit the motorcycle as it tried to pass. Conway suffered minor injuries to his foot. Teresa?
Indiana's seatbelt law takes effect in July, and as that date approaches, there is word from the University of Michigan showing traffic deaths for front row occupants dropped well over 8% in the first 8 states to pass mandatory seatbelt laws. The drop was nearly 10% in states with primary enforcement, allowing direct citation for violation of seatbelt laws. The drop was not as great in states such as Illinois, which has only secondary enforcement. The study also shows higher fatality rates in states without seatbelt laws, such as Indiana. Everything is okay, but students at West Vigo Elementary School were evacuated for a few minutes around 9 o'clock this morning after a clothes dryer caught on fire. Apparently, a belt on the dryer failed to work properly, and no one was hurt. A Farmersburg man accused of shooting his neighbor in the legs appeared in Sullivan Circuit Court this morning. An attorney was appointed for 54-year-old Muriel Laycock, and an evaluation was ordered for him at Hamilton Center in Terre Haute. Laycock is accused of shooting 33-year-old Herman Sparks after Sparks used his lawnmower on a couple of feet of Laycock's property last week. Sparks was seriously wounded. Laycock is charged with criminal recklessness.
The chairman of the Board of Trustees of Mary Sherman Hospital in Sullivan has resigned, so says today's Terre Haute Tribune Star. Dr. Ernest Dupree, quit Monday last month. 4 department heads and a nurse reportedly resigned there. And there has reportedly been an ongoing rift over management of Mary Sherman Hospital and the possibility of contracting the management to a for-profit firm. 2 men from Brazil, Indiana are charged with arson after fire destroyed a huge stockpile of old tires at the old Architects building Monday morning. 32-year-old James Allen Long and John Franklin Smith are also charged with conspiracy to commit arson and criminal mischief. The fire did more than $2,000 worth of damage and briefly knocked out electric power to some homes nearby.
The typical American diet is rich in saturated animal fats, and it is those fats which tend to raise the level of cholesterol in our blood. That can lead to hardening of the arteries and heart attacks. In part 2 of my special series this week, we'll look at hidden cholesterol in many of the foods we eat. For many people, even healthy people, the risk of heart attack may be increasing if their regular diet has lots of fat and cholesterol. You may be eating far more fat and cholesterol than you realize. If you drank a cup of whole milk today, you packed in 34 milligrams of cholesterol with just one serving. You could drastically reduce that to a mere 5 milligrams by switching to skim milk. And what did you have for lunch today? If it included 1 cup of creamed cottage cheese, a popular diet choice, you still consumed a hefty 48 milligrams of cholesterol. Switching to a low-fat cottage cheese would be a better bet. And if you like sardines, you may want to find a substitute if you're watching your cholesterol. Just 3 1/4 ounces contains a whopping 129 milligrams of cholesterol. And even 11 large shrimp pack in 96 milligrams of cholesterol. You also want to watch out for foods with hidden cholesterol, such as pastries or crackers. With food items such as these, you want to check the label to see if they contain any hidden saturated fat. If you see something that signals that this food does contain cholesterol, you do want to steer clear of that if you're watching your diet. Clearly, many traditionally thought of health foods contain hidden cholesterol. So if you have to watch it, it's a good idea to learn which foods have what. Now it's my turn. Well, tonight we will look at grocery shopping and what foods to look for if you want to cut down on your cholesterol. Now, George.
Quit talking over yourself. Well, then there's the story of animal trainer, it's not our day. Trainer Vasily Timchenko, the Soviet Union. This is a good story, though. He had these trained seals, you see, and he figured it would be nice to have them perform for vacationers at the edge of the Black Sea. So, as TV cameras rolled, Timchenko put the seals through their paces and gave them their fish rewards. Then the seals decided they'd had enough of life in the Soviet Union. They sought asylum in the sea, while Timchenko tried in vain to coax them back to shore. Imagine that. They were last seen about 20 miles away, enjoying their freedom. Just thought I'd throw that one in, Teresa.
It's a good one, George. Well, on the evening editions of Action 10 News, we will check progress on economic development in Sullivan. Action 10 Illinois Bureau Chief Kevin Ash will tell us about a special announcement in Florida. And Marla Keller will bring us another Wednesday's Child. So join Marla and Gary Jackson for the evening editions of Action 10 News.
We'll be here. Weather Watch coming up next.
Jeff Lyons will be back with details on that dry Action 10 forecast in just a minute.
If you want big... They think that politics is a dirty business. No, my wife sure does. But I love this town, and I want to do something for it. Thank you.
That's it?
I guess that is. Fine, Mr. Carlson. That was real good.
Yeah, just perfect, really.
Listen, edit that, punch it up, make him sound forceful.
WKRP in Cincinnati, Wednesday at 4 on TV 10.
Well, we're not friends, exactly. We just happen to work alongside each other, if you call what Magnum does working.
He has done friendly things for me. I can't think of any offhand.
We're certainly not colleagues.
Definitely not pals.
Decidedly not chums.
Allies?
Oh, I suppose he's a decent enough fellow. Perhaps Tennyson said it best. Kind hearts are more than coronets.
Emerson said the only way to have a friend is to be one. That's what it's all about.
So is that what it's all about?
Remember, if you see Jeff today, you don't say hi or anything, you just say too darn dry. That's the key word for
I don't know
today.
if we really want to encourage this or not. That could lead to some...
It could. It might lead to something.
Maybe some rain.
The Hey Kevins and Hey Jeffs, we have a new one.
That would be nice. It's just more personable stuff here. I just wish it would bring us some rain. Now, some folks over in Illinois got some rain, don't get me wrong, but overall, we're 6 inches below normal for this time of year. It's one of the driest Mays on record. I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute, but first of all, let's take a look at our statistics. Right now, outside, 75 degrees here in downtown Terre Haute, 72 out at the airport. 54 degrees was the low temperature this morning. Records for the date 88 back in 1982. and it was 32 degrees back in 1960. Right now we have 75 degrees at the TV station, and at the airport it's 72 degrees. Feels as if it's 75 though. Barometric pressure is at 3016 and it's holding steady. Relative humidity is at 60%. Winds are out of the southwest at 5 miles per hour, and the river stage is at 2.1 feet and falling. Well, this is the driest May since 1957, so kind of taking a trip down memory lane here. The reason for all this is we don't have any moisture here coming up off the Gulf. High pressure here is really keeping all of the moisture and everything from changing our weather. Now, there is a cold front, a very weak one, though, which is now moving through the Dakotas up here. You can kind of see it off of this low, way up over the Hudson Bay, and earlier today, it touched off a few thunderstorms up in South Dakota. 61-mile-an-hour winds at Eden, South Dakota, some pea-sized hail and so forth up there. Not really heavy rainfall so much, but just a lot of bad weather, lightning and so forth, and that's because we don't have enough moisture. It's too darn dry. That's the whole problem. High pressure now here over central Ohio is what's causing that. Our skies are going to remain basically clear, kind of overcast though. In fact, if you've been outside today, they're a little hazy because of the farmers working in the fields and so forth. We have a lot of particulate pollution up in the air in the form of dust and so forth. And this cold front down here, which moved through a couple days ago and brought some scattered showers, is completely dried up now down over the Carolinas. There's still a few thunder showers falling along the Gulf Coast down here and into central Texas. But none of this stuff is going to come up towards the Wabash Valley in the near future. Take a look at the satellite picture right now, and you can see this moisture just kind of dwindling out. One really good cell of thunder showers built up here, moved into central Minnesota earlier this morning, and it brought amounts of rain of around a ½ inch to some places up there, and they desperately need it too. It's been very warm and very dry up there really all season. Here's a better look at those thunderstorms as they built up and kind of moved through parts of Minnesota, but that's so far away from what we need. This clear sky here is just going to compound our problem even more by making things drier. Right now along the southeastern coast of the United States, they're picking up some nice thunder showers, and also you can see down here right along, well, near actually Biloxi, Mississippi, had about 22 inches, or 22/100ths of an inch of rain today, not 22 inches. Also central Minnesota, still picking up some rain up there. Well, our two-state temperatures right now in the 60s up to the north. Fort Wayne at 64 degrees, 66 degrees in Chicago. It's too darn dry in Chicago, too. Just everywhere you go in the two-state area. And speaking of our two-state area, Bill Niehoff says 73 degrees right now up in Marshall, 76 degrees with the Guess Swines over in Brazil, and 76 degrees with Esther McCormick down in Sullivan, or actually near Sullivan. She lives down closer to Carlisle, and 74 degrees in Flat Rock. Temperatures across the nation today, not much relief in sight. We'll be in the 80s and 90s throughout most of our part of the country. So the forecast then, what is it going to be, George? Do you know the catch? Too darn dry. Right, okay, good. We're just making sure you're awake over here. High temperature of 80 degrees, sunny and pleasant. Tonight, much of the same with a low of around 50. And tomorrow, maybe a scattered thunder shower. Boy, I hope we get a few through here. High of 84 degrees. Only about a 20% chance of those thunder showers. That's why I said widely scattered. Highs in the 80s, lows in the mid-50s through the week with sunny skies every day. Great for suntanning, great for laying out, but it's too darn dry.
Yeah, yeah. And we should explain, you know, if you were here this morning at 7 a.m. for the Action 10 Morning Edition, Jeff had every map labeled too darn dry. That's the catchphrase of the day.
That's, well, maybe of the month. I tell you, this is one of the driest Mays since, I'm looking down here at my chart, since 57, at least, in the recent history.
So when is it going to rain? Hey, Jeff.
It's too darn dry. We don't know when it's going to rain.
All right. Thank you.
Well, Matt Fleck will bring us our Midday Farm Watch segment coming up next. Too darn dry.
This was Peppy.
On Our Magazine, it's a very outspoken Betty Davis on the colorization of her black and white films.
Out the window.
And on former actor Ronald Reagan.
It is difficult to always see him smiling, no matter whatever happens.
Plus, Man of the Hour Jose Ebert performs his makeover magic for a 20-year class reunion. Thursday morning at 8 on TV 10.
Well, now it's time for Matt, and I guess you've got some rather encouraging news for us this midday.
Seems to get more encouraging all the time. I don't know.
Too darn dry to maybe
encouragement. That's not so encouraging, but there is some encouraging news in our agriculture news today. The Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago has a new study that indicates the decline in the value of Midwest farmland has hit bottom and may be coming back. The Reserve Bank surveyed 525 farm bankers in 5 Midwest states, including Indiana and Illinois. And here's what they found. Since January, Illinois farmland values have increased 2%, while dropping Indiana farmland values have slowed to 1%. A wide majority of the bankers said the value of farmland has stabilized. Some said it was even a little bit better than was before. Even with the slight gain in optimism in the first quarter of this year, land values and cash rental rates are still down 8% from a year earlier. Scientists say, or the Environmental Protection Agency says, rather, that they believe Illinois has a real problem with contaminated drinking water. And apparently the problem is growing. Yesterday, the EPA said 8% of the city wells in the state show evidence of chemical contamination, and a greater percentage show bacterial contamination. The EPA wants the Illinois legislature to approve a bill that would require a protection zone of about 200 feet in all directions around any public or private well. EPA groundwater expert Bob Clark says those wells that have been found to be chemically contaminated do not pose a serious health problem because the water is treated after it is withdrawn from the well. EPA groundwater expert, he said that groundwater pollution by agriculture chemicals is not a big problem in cities, but does cause some difficulties in shallow rural wells. Meanwhile, contaminated chickens have caused the National Research Council to question current poultry inspection methods. Scientists say that poultry inspectors have no way of determining if salmonella is present in chickens they inspect, especially when the birds move past them at a rate of 1 per second, or 1 per second. The Research Council wants to see the inspection procedures changed to allow for microscopic inspection. They say they do not want to discourage people from eating chicken. They just want to be more sure that the chicken we eat is safe. Well, chicken yards, cornfields, and gardens have long been the home of the traditional scarecrow. And this summer, the Indiana State Fair wants to see the best-looking scarecrow in the state. They say they're conducting the first Pioneer Scarecrow contest at the fair this year to let the younger generation see a bit of the past. That's our agriculture news. When we come back, we'll update you on Midday Farm Markets.
Mrs. Garrett's store is hit by vandals.
Why would anyone want to do something to us?
Mrs. Garrett, you sell quiche. You're going to make a few enemies. I noticed the Lords of Discipline left their calling card on your wall.
A street gang?
In this neighborhood? Aren't there zoning laws against that? If there was a gang in this town, I'd know about it. Well, maybe it has an unlisted clubhouse number.
On the Facts of Life. Wednesday at 4:30 on TV 10.
Now let's take a look at the midday farm markets. On the Chicago Board of Trade at this hour, May corn is down 4 cents at 183 1/4. July down 2 1/2 at 189 3/4. September down 3 at 194, and December off 3 at 199 3/4. Soybean futures for May down 2 1/2 cents at 556. July up 1/2 at 565. September down 1 at 568 1/2, and November up 1 at 573 1/2. Wheat futures for May down 7 1/2 cents at 312. July off 4 1/4 cents at $3 3/4. Oat futures for May down 1 1/4 cent at 186 1/4. May soybean oil up 13 at 17 even. July up 9 at 17.26. Meal for May down 70 cents at 168.50. July also down 70 at 167.60. Cash grain prices changed a little bit from what we told you this morning. Corn started at $2.91 this morning. Beans at $1.80. Wheat at $5.41. Milo at $2.80, and oats at $1.82. On the Mercantile Exchange, June live cattle at this hour down 57 at 68.05. August down 70 at 61.92. Feeder cattle for May down a dime at 69.55. August down 35 at 67.77. June live hogs down 15 at 55.32. July off 20 at 51.45. Pork bellies for May down $1.57 at 73.25, and July down $1 at 70.12. At Indianapolis, they had 600 hogs, topping at $56. No test for cattle and no sheep at Indianapolis. That finishes our Farm Watch for Wednesday.
Okay, well, we're going to learn about something of the hand. Disease of the hand, median tunnel syndrome is something a lot of older people have. You may have it. Dr. William Drummond will be telling us more about what to look for when we come up.
Two new couples battle for the ultimate grand prize on the next $1 million chance of a lifetime. If Ken and Arlene Baker become millionaires, it'll be the story of a lifetime.
That would really give me the freedom to concentrate on my writing.
And if Eileen and Derek Gribble win it all, one picture would be worth 1,000,000 words.
Well, the first thing I do is go out and get some really good video equipment.
On the next $1 million chance of a lifetime.
Wednesday at 3 on TV 10.
Tom Raper, Richmond, Indiana, announces a spectacular RV.
Now, let's go to Trade Center. Special guest, Dr. William Drummond.
Oh, it's time to be.
Thank you, George. Well, my guest is Dr. William Drummey, and we are going to talk about median tunnel syndrome. Now, this is something of the hand, and you've got a model on your hand. So I'm just going to let you take over here and give us a little lesson.
Well, the median nerve supplies sensation to these fingertips, carries it to the brain, and supplies control to this muscle. It runs through a tight tunnel in the wrist, just below the wrist, where bones and a tight ligament can compress it. And people who use their hands a lot, older people particularly with arthritis, people with injuries to the wrist, etc., develop numbness in these fingers, and if carried far enough, weakness of the thumb, which renders their hand not a very good tool when this nerve is compressed in the tunnel. It can be compressed in pregnancy just from fluid accumulation. It can be compressed in arthritis. I get symptoms when I use my hands a lot doing manual work because I irritate the nerve and cause swelling in the tunnel, which pinches it. And I wake up in the middle of the night with these three fingers numb. And if I straighten my wrist out, it usually goes away. The treatment, besides surgery, which is fairly expensive for a minor operation, is to wear a wrist splint, which keeps your hand in this position and sleep. And they're not expensive. You can buy them. And usually that relieves the numbness. It becomes only an emergency if you get muscle loss here. You don't like to lose thumb control. And if you're losing muscle strength, you need surgery to stop it. And it's a common syndrome, and people have, I've had it since I was a teenager, didn't know what it was until recent years.
Well, can it ever progress into anything debilitating, or
you can lose the use of your thumb if it goes far enough, and frequently when you get muscle loss, you can't get it back. So you don't want it to go that far.
Now, say this occurs in pregnancy or something at a younger age.
I saw a
now,
patient
is that
the other
going
day.
To pass, or?
Yeah, it goes away. But during the time they're retaining a lot of fluid in the last part of the second trimester, they get enough swelling in here to cause the nerve to be pinched, and they have numb fingers.
Okay. Again, what are some of the symptoms that we should look for?
Basically, the numbness of the fingers, which most people will complain about at night, but it can happen holding a steering wheel, writing, anytime you're using these fingers.
Are there any drugs or anything that...
Cortisone injection sometimes, but that's a little shaky, I think. It's probably best to use the splint, and if that doesn't work, just have a surgical procedure.
Well, you say surgery is expensive. Are there any alternatives?
Surgery is always too expensive, you know, and it depends on the surgeon. I think the neurosurgeons want about $1,000 a procedure to do it, which is ridiculous. A good general surgeon would probably do it for half that, and that's still too much money.
Okay, but you suggest then if it is progressing
if you're getting muscle
serious,
weakness, yes, you need surgery.
Okay, now does it ever just not get too bad? I mean, to the point
I've
where
had
you
it
don't
since
need
I
surgery.
was working on a truck dock in medical school, off and on, and I've had no progression. I've still got good muscle control.
So for you, it's more of an annoyance.
It just comes and goes.
Okay, but people should definitely keep an eye on that numbness.
And the muscle weakness.
Okay, because surgery could be indicated.
That's right.
Well, interesting. We learned something today. Well, we thank you for coming on once every month. We like to listen to all you have to say. So many interesting health topics today.
Thank you for allowing me to.
All right. Well, Dr. William Drummey, and when we come back, we will hear from our Jeff Lyons, who's going to take another look at the two-state forecast. Time to recap that forecast.
It is indeed. I was just thinking, if you know a story, what do you think of this idea, Jeff? Okay. Somebody knows a story, you know, like it was so dry, the cows were giving powdered milk. Write to us. We'd like to read some of those on the air. You heard any of those folks?
That's right.
What do you think?
Do that in conjunction with this, the Too Darn Dry
It's too darn
campaign.
dry.
Right. So we'll have people marching down Wabash Avenue saying it's too darn dry. I can picture it now. Yeah. Well, anyway, let's picture the forecast since that's what we're really here for. First of all, today we're looking for a high temperature of around 80 degrees, sunny and pleasant. Tonight, fair and mild with a low of 60 degrees. Tomorrow, more of the same, maybe some scattered afternoon thunder showers. And the extended forecast, too darn dry.
I like that.
Okay. That's catchy.
Yeah, it is catchy.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. That's Action 10 News for this midday edition. At 6 tonight, Marla and Gary will tell you about economic development plans in Sullivan County, Indiana, and a special announcement in Flora, Illinois.
Yeah, and also Marla will bring us another Wednesday's Child.
And we hope you'll be watching Action 10 News this evening. Meantime, thanks for watching this midday.
Bye-bye.
Some of the news we told you about today came from you. Be a part of the Action 10 News team. Call us at 232-4953 or call our Illinois News Bureau at 618-544-7034.
Tom Layson, is this pit bull terrier a vicious killer, or is it just another harmless breed of dog suitable for use as the family pet? That's the question surrounding the pit bull right now. Dozens of people have been injured or killed by these dogs. On Action 10 News, Thursday night at 6 and 10, we'll take a closer look at some of these potentially deadly animals.
In 1787, during a hot and humid summer, 55 delegates created the oldest national government charter in history. This year, we celebrate the 200th anniversary of the U.S. Constitutional Convention that created the United States. It was an effective document 2 centuries ago, but how does it affect you today? I'm Gary Jackson. Join me next week as I travel to Philadelphia, and together we'll rediscover the birth of our freedom. We the People, beginning Monday, May 18th on Action 10 News.
Before you take a chance with your life, remember, someone needs you. Say no to drugs.